Hi everyone, so today's video is going to be a voiceover comment over what I'm doing because I forgot to put the mic on today while I was recording this, and it's a video that I really want to upload today because it's a pretty useful skill. So I'll try to explain what I'm doing as I'm watching myself teaching. So so we're going to be learning how to sketch parabolas when there's three different terms like that, and I've written the steps there as you can see. You need to factorize it to find the x-intercepts, as you can see. So I'll be going through all those steps that you can see up on the board as we do this question. So the first thing you got to find is a y-intercept, which is always the number without x, like you can see there. So the y-intercept is minus a, so that's pretty straightforward. The second thing that you got to do is find the x-intercept by factorizing it. By using cross method, I'm factorizing it now. And you got two numbers, 4 and minus 2, which multiply to give minus 8, and at the same time it adds to give plus 2. So if I put them in brackets like that, from the first bracket you can see that the x value is minus 4. You just take the opposite sign of what's inside the bracket, as you can see that I just pointed out, and you got x equals to just 2. So you got those 3 points, minus 8, minus 4 and 2. I'm going to plot those points out on the number plane now. So you've got minus 8 on the y-axis because that's the y-intercept, and you've got minus 4 and 2, which I'm now going to label on the x-axis. Okay, so once you got those 3 points, basically you just have to draw a parabola that goes through all those 3 points. So let's see how I go. And there we are. That's a pretty decent looking parabola. Yep, so that's basically a graph. And I think I'm talking about extra features that the exam or any exercise questions could ask you once you've drawn the parabola. So yes, so the extra features that they could ask is the coordinate of the vertex or the turning point, which I've just labeled, and you could find that visually by finding the axis of symmetry, which is that red dotted line I just drew. And that value is halfway through the two values minus 4 and 2, which you can find out by adding them and dividing by 2. So I'm just going to write axis of symmetry and just show you the working out to show you that value. Yep, so minus 4 plus 2 over 2, which will give you that midpoint, and that is minus 1. So your axis of symmetry is minus 1, or as an equation that would be x equals to minus 1. So from there, if I wanted to find the coordinate of the vertex or the turning point right there, you just basically have to substitute that minus 1 back into the original equation, which I will show you in a minute. So x equals to minus 1, substitute that back into the original as you can see there. That will give you the y coordinate of the vertex. What am I writing there now? I'm just writing the note. Sub x, yeah, okay. So if I substitute minus 1, make sure you put in a bracket as usual because you're squaring something. And if you do that, I think I'm just thinking in my head what the value is without using a calculator. Yeah, my arithmetic's pretty bad. I can't see. What are you supposed to get? Yeah, minus 9. Yeah, okay. So the coordinate of the vertex is minus 1 and minus 9. And then I think I asked the class after that whether if it's a minimum or a maximum parabola. I'm just summarizing the points there. Yeah, so if the parabola looks like that, obviously it's a minimum or concave up. It's got a minimum turning point and concave up parabola. So I'm just going to basically go through the same steps, finding the y-intercept and finding the x-intercept and then drawing them up. So as you can see from the second question, it's pretty obvious what the y-intercept is. It's always the x without the number. Sorry, number without the x. And x-intercept, once again, I'm just going to factorize that. But what I really wanted to point out in that question is if there is a minus in front of x squared, you always want to take the minus out. So as you can see what I'm doing. So if you take the minus out, you write x squared for the first one, But for the other two, you have to change the sign. So instead of plus 8x, it becomes minus 8x and minus 9. So from there, factorize what's inside the bracket. And two numbers that, yeah, obviously multiply to give minus 9 is minus 9 and 1, because it also adds up to give minus 8. So if you put them in a bracket as usual, you can see that the first x-intercept value with the minus out of the bracket as well, don't forget the minus. Not that it will affect your x-intercepts, but part of your working out, you still want to show that minus inside. So at x equals to minus 1 and x equals to 9. And then, yeah, just plot it out. So you got 9, which is on the y-axis because that's the y-intercept, and minus 1 and 9. Okay. So let's draw a parabola that goes all 3 points over there. But what you also want to keep in mind, and I think I'm going to explain this soon, just because, okay, hold on, let me get to the part where I'm explaining it. That's how the graph should look like, but yeah, this is the part where I say a lot of students, including myself when I was a student, I would draw the graph like what I'm about to do now, which is a mistake. Yeah, don't draw it like that just because we have to go through that point at 9 doesn't mean the peak or the vertex has to be at that point. It just has to go through 9. It doesn't mean the peak is at that point, so don't make that mistake. So with these other 3 questions, I just want to point out how to factorize and find the x and the y-intercept. So I'm just going through the usual step, but I won't be drawing the graph because it's pretty obvious by now how to do it. So once again, y-intercept is minus 9, which is a number without x. And if I want to factorize it now, as you can see, it's a difference of 2 squares. So I just want to make sure students know how to do that by now. So if you factorize, it'll be x minus 3, x plus 3. And once again, taking the opposite signs for each bracket will give you the values, which is pretty straightforward. But the reason why I wanted to go through that question, even if it's obvious, is having a look at the next question, x squared minus 2. What am I doing? Okay, I'm just pointing out the axis of symmetry again. Okay, so remember, axis of symmetry is figured out by finding midpoint between the 2 x-intercepts, once again adding them and dividing by 2. Do I do it? Yeah. Okay, so with that question, you still want to do the same thing. So the y-intercept is obviously, once again, minus 2. But with the x-intercept, if there's no square number that goes into 2, you want to have a look here. You want to write square root of the number if there's no square number that goes into it, and that's perfectly fine. I don't know what I'm saying here, but as you can see, then using the same strategy, so x is equal to plus root 2, you're taking the opposite sign once again, and the next one will be x equals to minus root 2. But when it actually comes to sketching the graph, you want to actually type in root 2 in the calculator, which is 1.4 recurring decimal. You want to actually use a decimal number to actually draw the parabola, because you can't really tell what root 2 is as an actual value when you plot it, so make sure you use the decimal number when you sketch the parabola. With the last one, let's have a look at why this question was different. Okay, I changed the question here and said if there is no number, the y-intercept is 0. So if there's no number without x to find the y-intercept, just because there is nothing there doesn't mean there isn't a y-intercept. The y-intercept is actually 0. So once again, I'm finding the x-intercept by factorizing it. In this case, I don't have to use the cross method because we've only got 2 terms. And from the first term, x is equal to 0. And from the second bracket, x is equal to minus 4. So I'm just putting those x-intercepts on the number plane. And I think I mentioned, this is where I ask the students what they think is the y-intercept if there's no number. And I give them the answer, it's 0. And basically you got those 2 points, and I think was asking if it goes concave up or down, just to make sure the students know the basics. And it's concave up because it's a positive sign in front of x squared, not negative. And I'm not too sure what I'm doing here. Let's just watch. Right, if here I just rigged the question and said, if we factorize the equation, it was just x plus 4 squared, that means you have one x-intercept minus 4, and that's how the graph would look like if you factorize it and you only had one x-intercept, not 2, like what the previous questions that I did. Okay, so that's a wrap. I finished it there, and okay, that's it. Thank you.